Okay, and we are back, and we're really trying to keep to our Thursday commitment to be here and do our stream. So here we are. A couple of things I want to talk about. A couple things to remember. I do not look at the chat until about 25 minutes in. So if anyone leaves something, I'll get to it. I just don't get to it immediately. I guess that's about it. About it for now. I am wearing black today, which I normally do not wear, but I do wear it when we're in any type of eclipse season because it is kind of a pivotal part to a lot of really everyone's existence when we get into eclipse season. So I'm going to touch a little bit on eclipses, then we're going to go into a little bit on creation and why some of the tools that you see people using or they've been kind of distorted a little bit and why they don't work. So, and why they might work for a while, but then they don't work anymore. But we're going to go through what really creates. And that is a topic that you see all over, everywhere. You know, this creates, that creates, this creates your reality. If you just, it's that old adage that, and it is a truth to this, but a different consciousness perspective is going to have a different twist to it. And when people say certain things, it's because they see it from one perspective or they see it from one dimension. They don't see it from the other dimension. What I said 2 years ago would be a part of the picture of what I could see now, because back so many years ago I couldn't see. I might have only be able to see, I would have done a video on this that might have lasted 8 minutes, and now I could probably do an 8-hour class on it because you can just see more and you're able to bring more perspectives in, which you're supposed to do when you're able to do that. You're supposed to bring more in. You're not supposed to just do the one. You're supposed to do the other 15 billion, if you whatever you can see of that. So there is the thing that whatever you focus on comes in, right? And if you focus on money, money will come in. If you don't want money, then money will come in. And so we're going to dive a little bit into that one. And I'm just going to use the money example because it's the one you see a lot. You can do the same thing for money, love, and health. Those are the three things that push humans. Those are the three kind of catalysts for our human existence that will get people moving. Money, love, and health. So they're the ones you see all over. Increase your health, increase your money, find your true love. Those are like the magic pills that the 3D kind of revolves around, in a sense, trying to control those things. And what happens when you start walking away from a lot of those beliefs, because the beliefs around all those things is very distorted in the human consciousness. So I'm going to try to get in a little bit of that today too. So, okay. I do want to touch on eclipses for a minute because we are in, I don't know if it's a partial lunar eclipse. I think it's a partial lunar eclipse. I could be wrong on that exactly. But when we get into eclipse season, you're going to see a lot of different things. You're going to see what can't go with you. And a lot of people will kind of say, oh, it always ends something. I feel like it will end something, especially if it's actually in your sign. If you have it in your sign, I feel like it's a little more dramatic. And you can also go back and see how different parts of your life are kind of leading up to certain years this would happen, certain years this would happen. Certain things will phase out and you won't see them again. And last year during an eclipse, I moved and I will never be back in that house again. This year, there are other you can have 3-year timelines closing out. You can have 21-year timelines closing out. You could have 2.5-year timelines closing out over top of a 21-year-old timeline closing out. More of an overarching timeline closing out. Like you could have lived in one space for 2.5 years, but you could have lived in the area for 21 years. So you're kind of closing out two things at one time. But what you're going to see is you're going to be very much pointed into what needs to close out. And you're going to see your resistance to closing it out. You're going to see your resistance on why you either don't want to let it go because you have an identity around it. You're going to see your feeling on or your beliefs on why you might not have what you need to close it out. It's never really about the thing you're closing out. It's the story and the energy we have wrapped up around it and the emotions we have wrapped up around it. That's what's trying to close out. It's never the thing. And I will say that and repeat that 100 times on these streams. It's never the thing. It's always going to be what it brings up. That's what's trying to get closed out. That's what's trying to leave the body. That's what's trying to purify. You're kind of, instead of looking at it as your ending timelines, you're kind of purifying timelines. And the ones that are pure are going to go forward, and the ones that are not are going to they're going to be, if we, they're going to be pruned in a sense. They're going to be cut off. They're going to be done, you know. And there's some that we might know that we can see the ending of. So you're going to see either things completely end during this eclipse. You might just see, okay, I know that's got to go. Well, like I'm kind of getting my marching orders, and our universe will give us our marching orders. You know, our higher aspects will give us our marching orders and be like, okay, I know this has got to go. I can see the writing is on the wall that this reality has to close out. And it can be anything from weaning off a certain medication you might be taking. It could be anything from getting your finances in a certain place. It could be anything from knowing you have to put your house on the market. The house has got to go. You get all the signs. You know, okay, this is kind of going to be weaning out. So when we go through this part of the year, you're going to have the new stuff coming in. You'll start having some sneak peeks of the new stuff. You might not fully understand the new stuff. Like I knew where I was going last October. I didn't 100% know why. I didn't have the full thing. I didn't have the consciousness to see why I was really there. I had a lot of emotion around the leaving, a lot of emotion around where I was going, a lot of that I had to work through before I could actually see why I was actually there. And now I see some of that fading out, and I can see some of the new stuff that's going to be coming in for the next year. So it can be a very exciting time if we allow that. It can be a sad time. And if we are going through the sadness, it is important that we grieve through that. Our human does need to grieve, and that is kind of we try to not want to do that and think, even no matter how conscious we are, oh, we shouldn't be sad about that. That was so distorted. That was so fucked up. I don't know why I'm even sad about that. But if we feel the need to grieve and we feel the tears coming, and I always kind of, for me, I know I haven't gotten to the bottom of a program or a bottom of something going on with me until I start to cry. Then I know, okay, there it is. You know, it's not A, B, or C. It's way down here at Z, and sometimes we have to really work through this stuff. We can't look at the superficial stuff. You know, we can't just look at the top layer and say, okay, yeah, that's what it is. Let me go do this. Because anytime we did that, anytime we looked at we had that gut reaction, it never kind of worked out. It's kind of like a New Year's resolution. We go, oh, we're going to do this year, but they always fade because they're always built on something that's not the highest aligned thing. You know, it's built on something that's not where we're supposed to be. Because if we're still doing New Year's resolutions, we haven't got the insight to know what's going to happen next year. We have an idea of how it's going to shape up. We know because we've already designed it all. We've planned it all. You know, we understand what's going on. We understand the timelines we're going to be in. We can see it. And we understand what's going on. Whereas when we were in our human consciousness, the same things were happening. We just were not privy to the cliff notes of what was really going on. We couldn't see that. I could see that, yeah, I had a lot of stuff coming in October of that year. And then the next year, the theme of what was happening really in October. Maybe I kind of had met a person in October and they were a big theme for the whole next year, a whole majority of the next year until I got to around that next October, November timeframe. And then, okay, all of a sudden now I can see that fading, and now I see what's going to be coming in after that. Even though you might not see, so most of this stuff won't fully anchor in for you and for a lot of us until maybe February, March of the next year when we're actually doing whatever we see we're supposed to do. But we kind of have our marching orders. We kind of know, and we're being shown what can't go anymore. So really look at what you're resisting going. I don't want to spend a lot of time kind of beating the eclipses to death. I feel like it kind of becomes very, the more you hear it, there are a lot of consciousness. We have to hear it again and again and again and again, because that's what kind of works in there. That's what kind of gets in there. Gets in our human mind to go, yeah, you know, I didn't understand that at the time, but now that it's said that way, I kind of see it, you know. I mean, how far in this ditch am I going to dig before I realize all I'm doing is I'm digging. I'm actually, I feel like I'm digging deeper, and in a way we're digging deeper into our human existence, but we're actually kind of digging out the other side, not knowing it. We're kind of making our own escape route on the other side to get out. Because 2024 is going to be massive for the collectives, and you will hear that all over. Anything you tune to, whether you've seen it yourself and you know it's going to be a lot of heavy stuff coming in 20. You can see it in the mass collectives already. Everything that's going on in October, everything that started, you know, in September and October, it's just going to be the tip of the iceberg as to how things are going to be playing out in 2024. Because humanity has to move forward. It can't stay in this quasi awakening where you might have 2% on the planet that's in awakening or going through ascension, and the other 98% are completely unconscious. It can't hold like that. At some point, everything has to go farther. It has to be pushed farther. And 2024, a lot of people have said 2024 will make 2020 look crazy. I personally didn't see 2020 coming, but I have seen 2024 coming, so for a couple of years now. The one of that's I was in a different consciousness in 2019 or 2018 to be able to see that far ahead. But it is going to be a pivotal year. So you can see it on, in your life, what you're going to be doing, and in all the collectives. And depending on what collective you're still attached up to, whether it be attached to by consciousness or attached to by just the DNA in your body, there's still something in your body that attaches up to that collective, which the DNA, the programming in our body, that'll be the last thing that goes, and we're disconnecting from a collective is kind of like that last thing. You'll start to see your patterns, your themes a little bit more, and that's really when we hone in on consciousness, what that is. It's about being able to see through what we couldn't see before, understand. Like I said, all of it was happening before. We just did not have the backdoor access we have now to really be able to see it and understand it. This is my theme. I am getting my marching orders. Some of them, I'll be honest, I don't like the way my universe is saying, you're going to have to go do this, you're going to have to do this. And so I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do that one, and I don't really want to do that one. But, I didn't want to do the one I had to do this year either. This is not the one I really wanted to do. But I understand why it was so important. I understand why it's so important for us to get into different. Last year was all about ancestral DNA, reconnecting with some blood family to work out stuff. That was a very pivotal part. And a lot of us have to do that part at some point, and a lot of us don't want to do that part. Because like I said, these are not the sexy realities we want to jump into, or the ones when we think about or daydream about. That this is really not the one. And it doesn't seem like this is a straight pattern to get to the ones I want to get to, or the ones that I'm perceiving as more fun. But that's usually a perception from a different consciousness too, or a different aspect of us. So really be attuned into what you're seeing, and look at what's trying to come in. Look at what's trying to leave. Look at what's trying to leave. You have excuse about why it can't leave yet. Look at what's getting pressed to leave. In fact, like maybe this was a minor thing before, and all of a sudden it just got notched up to a 12, and before it was maybe a 1 on your scale of importance, and now something's happened to bring it to the forefront. It's like now it's getting pushed that no, now we're going to push you to close this out. And to close this out, you might have to do uncomfortable things you don't want to do, and that you might not have done if we didn't give you this extra push. And you might see yourself being pushed to end things. And do things to end them that you might not want to do. Talk to certain people that you don't want to have conversations with, because it's not so much to end the physical thing, it's to have that conversation with someone you don't want to do. The conversation you might have put off. The conversation, if I look back at a conversation I had to have the other day, I'd probably put it off for 8 months. And then it got to the point of like, oh, I can't put this off anymore. I got to have this conversation. What aspect can you bring to that conversation? That's really what you're getting to. Is there an aspect you can get to now in that conversation you couldn't have gotten to 10 months ago? But now that you've had a year, and pretty much a lot of these things go a year, 2 years. Most of my realities, like I said, you have different timelines. I'm going to touch on timelines a little bit too in this stream. You have different timelines you're going to be working on. In some timelines, you're in a 2.5 year, there's 3-year timelines, there's 4-year timelines, there's 7-year timelines, you got 9-year timelines, you got the 12-year timelines, you got 21-year, you got big things going on. 18-year, I heard someone talk about an 18-year timeline the other day, and I could see where I had kind of been in that also. So they're layered upon layered, and there's never just one answer. There's never just the rule of 3. Everyone says everything lasts 3 years. Sometimes things can last a lot longer than that, depending on when you started them and how long it took you to work through them. I can say I was in a 21 timeline working through stuff, but if I was consciously working through it, I could have maybe done that timeline. And normally nothing's less than 2 years. And I don't know if I've had one that's gone just 2 years. That's like the minimum time. No matter what you're embodying, that is like the minimum time. 1 year to get the consciousness, 1 year to anchor the consciousness and live the consciousness, and then you go to the next thing. And there are always different things happening at the same time. So you're not just working on one thing, you're working on multiple things. You're anchoring in one thing and getting the consciousness in on something else. Given different aspects that are going to be prominent for you to embody. You might have, usually I'll dream about the aspect. That's still my pattern. I'll dream about the aspect I'm going to be really working on this year and bringing in this year to embody in, to live from that aspect, and it merges in with all your other aspects you've embodied in. So, you kind of start to get, a lot of these marching orders, you kind of start to get a lot of these kind of flashes on what's happening. We don't have to go, I wonder what's going to happen in 2024. A lot of us already can see a lot of it. We might not be able to see the whole picture yet on why we're doing it, but we know what we're going to be doing. We know stuff we're supposed to be putting in effect. But a lot of these timelines went 21 years, 18 years, because a majority, 80, 90% of that timeline, you were unconscious in it. So you were just letting it play out on this natural rhythm. You know, you weren't quantum jumping through it. You weren't looking at things you had to end that you didn't want to. You let everything drag on until, okay, now it's got to be done. I mean, my God, how long are we going to sit here? But you might have only been conscious for 20% of that timeline or 5% of that timeline. But it did last that long. So you're going to be seeing a lot of that. You're going to be seeing a lot of your different timelines kind of weaving in and out, and different ones you might want to participate in, and some you know you're not going to participate in. I had to make a choice the other day about, you know, it's not so much am I afraid to go through that timeline. It's just, am I bringing up a lot of fear in that timeline? There is some fear there that I have to look at, and I had to release. And then when I thought it was at the end of it, of course, it was just the beginning of it, and I had to go through it longer. But it's also the, do I want that to be a reality? Can I close out that reality by doing something I'm even more afraid of doing? What's the bigger fear? Because that's where you got to go. That's what you're trying to be shown. It's not so much this thing. Would you rather go through this really shitty reality instead of just doing this one thing over here that you need to do anyway? You need to balance out the relationship. If there's an imbalance in relationships, where a lot of us, we work on a lot of imbalances in relationships for a while because we didn't realize how imbalanced they were. And then when we start to see how imbalanced they are, we really have to be like, okay, now I got to really get in here and do something about this, because I can't dim my light and dim your soul and not be in your brightest self by being powerless in a relationship. And it doesn't matter if we're talking, you know, siblings, soul family, galactic family, parental, you know, blood family. None of that matters. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not always going to be, oh, my husband, oh, my boyfriend, oh, my girlfriend, oh, my whatever. It's every relationship we have. You're going to have similar patterns and themes going through all of it. You're going to have tests for if you can align this one with someone you don't care that much about. And I'm going to say don't care that much about, in a sense, you have no cords or attachment. You have no dog in that race with that person. If you can have an open, honest discussion with them, then don't come over here and try to do it with someone that you have a lot of baggage with, and you have a lot of cords of attachment with. You have a lot of story around. You have a lot of emotion around. You know, if you can't do it here, don't even worry about over there yet. Can you do it here? So you're going to see a lot of that playing out. Now, I did title this video, I can't remember what I titled it. Let me give you a minute. Oh, yeah, what does create? And we're going to kind of, you know, 5% of your reality is going to be shaped by your conscious thoughts. The other 95% is done by your unconscious. And that is a part when you start getting into different books or different things you're going to see about, oh, if you don't think about money, this is what I wanted to get back to. If you don't think about money, then you'll have money. And if you are worried you're going to lose money, you're going to lose money. And all these kind of like rules that people set out. Like, this is how it works. I mean, there is a perspective where there is a truth to that in some realities, in some dimensions, but that is such a small aspect of what's going on. You know, I will tell you, when your universe wants you to value and not waste money, you're not going to have any money. I don't care if you ever thought about it before. I don't care how you treated money. I don't care how you really felt about money. There are certain parts of ascension where you're just not going to have any money. And all that other stuff is kind of background noise because you have a different transmission going off. You can consciously say, okay, I'm not going to think about money. You know, and like I said, I use money as an example because it's the one people you see most often. And this is the one or even with attracting love, you see the same thing. If you don't want to, you will. And when you want to, you won't. And there is something to that. But that's such a small part of how it's going to work. Because what you can't even see, it was bringing in all this stuff. You know, I can say stuff pops up in our reality. I never thought about one way or the other. Not wanting it, whatever. I never thought about it. In fact, I thought I was completely clear of something, and I got knocked on the head with something a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, I thought that was done. What is this coming back for? I had no thought into this whatsoever. Why did this get created? Because it's a different creation process going on. It's not just our thoughts do create, but we don't even realize how much stuff we buried deep inside of us, know what we're even thinking and what we're transmitting out. That's when we get into that cross signal. You know, we can say, because we only look at the surface of something. You know, we only look at the surface of, if we go back to the money example, we only look at the surface of how I feel about that. We don't go to the deeper parts of money, the self-worth stuff that gets attached to money, how the human consciousness values money, and how when you don't have it, you feel very ostracized from the human realities because you can't participate in a reality and bring money to the table. So there's so many other things that come to play here. It's not as simple as, let me think about it and I'm going to bring that right in, or let me not think about it and then it's going to come in. The old adage that, a watch pot doesn't boil. And there is a part of that where if we're really focused on something and we're waiting for something, it's not so much we're focused on it, it's the waiting part. We're waiting for something to happen to trigger something else, And when you get into living from your higher consciousness aspects, even tapping into higher consciousness, you start to see that it's not so much watching it, that it's not happening. It's because I'm waiting. I'm not doing anything. I'm just looking at that and waiting for it to do something. I'm not actively doing anything. And there's a big part of your awakening, and when you get into ascension and all the different parts and pieces of ascension, where you might find yourself in say, well, it's not time yet, so let me, but we're not waiting. That's where you start to kind of get away from that. It's a very weak word. It's like you're waiting for something to happen. It's not aligned yet. It's not time yet. It's not time for this to happen yet. Your universe will bring money back to you when you understand that it is there for a purpose, and the purpose is not for you. That's a big lesson we have to learn, and it's not to be wasted. It's like money is energy. You're not going to waste it. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to try to stop someone from getting hit by a train, metaphorically, because you don't want them to have to go through that? And that's a big one for a lot of us. I don't really want them to go through that, because we don't want to feel uncomfortable watching somebody go through that. Because we know when we went through it, it was very uncomfortable. I don't want someone else to have to go through that. But they might need to go through that. So when you pick apart the money, there's so many different perspectives in that, and so many different understandings as to why certain things you don't have it. And it's so much beyond, let me just focus on it. Because your transmission's not clear. You might say, I'll focus on it, but then I got all this other stuff going on. Not only do I have my own karma I've created in this reality, I've got the karma I'm clearing in every reality I've ever created. Let me start going through my human karma, and then I got galactic karma. Oh, I got some Atlantean karma going on, and there's some Lemurian karma there, and I got a lot of karma I got to work through. It's not just that simple. And there is, there's something about ascension where everyone's like, it is that simple, because you live from your soul and your higher aspect, and that is your natural way to be. It doesn't feel natural because it's not how our human acts. So it is not normal for us, but it's natural, from normal to natural. It's not the normal human way, but it's a more natural way to be. It's a more natural way for us to live. We don't understand a lot of times that we don't understand we're doing the frequencies are all crossed up, and we're transmitting out two crossed up frequencies. And we say we want this, but yet underneath we've got so much baggage to work through to even get to that. We don't even realize we're also sending out this other really distorted signal that might say, okay, now I got to call forth 18 people. They're going to help me work through this issue. That's all the unconscious part. That's the part we don't see, is why did I create that? And if we're ever sitting there saying, why did I create that? I would never have created that. Of course we created it. We don't want to get to the bottom of why we created it, and we don't understand because it's such a deeper reason we created it. It's not about the thing. It's normally 18 things removed from what we thought that thing was about. And that's why it takes a while when we start really starting to pick through, and we get, I hate the word triggered now because everyone uses triggered for everything. You got triggered and you have to go do this. Trigger just means it bothers you. That's all it means. You got bothered by something. You got pissed off. You got angry. It brought up an emotion to clear. But it's about clearing that emotion, but it's also about everything else. What belief do I have around that emotion? Why do I feel that way? What's really going on? Then I got to clear it from my body. Why did I even keep recreating this whole situation? Why do I think I'm through with it and I recreate it again? Because we got more to go. We got another layer to go through. As a human, we don't even scratch the surface. And in our awakening, we barely scratch the surface. Because we can't really see how deep we have to dig. you know, and if we knew, we wouldn't do it. And I say we wouldn't do it, we would run as fast as we could. The exciting part about when you go through your awakening, you start going through your ascension, and it's your time to do it, is it's exciting in the beginning, because you will find, you know, all of a sudden I think about that and it's there. And all of a sudden everything feels like it's so easy and so fast and so quick that no matter what I want to do, it's just so easy to do that. Hold on, sorry. Phone call. Destiny is calling. So we have so many different things we have to go through. We have so many different parts and pieces to work through that if we knew it, we wouldn't want to go there. So it gets camouflaged with a lot of prettier stuff. You know, like, ooh, telepathy, that's kind of fun, and let me try to do that. I've seen so many people, and telepathy is a human word. ESP is more of the, I don't want to say soul line word, but it's more of a higher vibrational word. And telepathy can have a lot of, it gets like a more sinister, to me it's more of a sinister word. A lot of people go, oh, you don't want to read people's minds or do any of that. It's like, that's just our natural state. You're just reading the field of consciousness. It's not like you're delving into someone's mind on it because you want to. You know, it's so loud, you can't not. You know, it's not like this is such a secret. I have to really do like Professor X and really kind of delve in there to get to it. I'm like, it's really not, it's not like, it's just all there. You know, as a human, we get feelings of something else being there, but we can't really put our finger on it because we're not tuned into those frequencies. You know, we're only tuned into that human frequency in a sense, and what we can see, what's right in front of us. We don't see all the multi-layers of things going on in our subconscious, that in our body that's creating a lot of this stuff, why we're calling a lot of this stuff forth. You know, you might say, I want to attract someone that is of, you know, a consciousness that I am, you know, whatever you're going to put out there, go, that's what I want. But all of a sudden, all you're getting back are people that are not. And you're like, well, that's not what I'm saying. Why do I keep getting this? Because a part of us is still unconscious. A part of us has to work through that part. It can also be, it's a zillion reasons. It can be like, okay, can you align this? Are you supposed to align this? Are you supposed to try to retrofit this? Are humans always going to want to try to retrofit it? And even when we start going through our ascension, we're going to try to retrofit a lot of realities to make them look higher aligned when they're really we're just kind of polishing them up a little bit, but they're really still not aligned, you know. And I don't know, maybe one thing that I had in my human reality came through to this point. Everything else is gone. So when you get to this point where so many things everything's leaving, you're like, well, where's the new stuff? It can be years before you get to the new stuff, because you still could have that cross frequency where you're still kind of wanting to experience some of the human stuff still. You know, you haven't 100% gotten out of that. And then when you start to get people to come in, there's not a frequency, there's not a purpose to it, there's not a really frequency match to it. You can't really see it going anywhere. You know, you can't really see what's the purpose of it. You're going to get into a big purpose thing, if you're in your galactic phases, it's a big mission thing. You know, what do I want to create? What do I want to be here for? And if we can't hone in on something like that, you don't really see the purpose in it. And we would have more stuff to work through, because we really can't be in conscious relationships, conscious partnerships, when there's still a part of us that wants to be in one of those, you know, because there's still that want and the need there. That's kind of the human thing. We have to shed a lot of that stuff. And when we're shedding it, the best way we kind of can sugarcoat it is there's going to be something else that comes along. And sometimes that could be a long time down the road. And the stuff that comes along is not really the stuff you would have wanted to come along, in a sense. It's what you needed to get to the next phase, but it would not have been how you would have created it, how your human would have created it. Because a lot of times in the beginning, and even to a large parts of Ascension, we're still trying to retrofit it back into a human, some kind of human thing we recognize, some kind of human thing I understand. You know, if I put it in this human box and try to make it work here, like, let me take all this higher consciousness, these terms and these things that about attracting a partner, and I'm going to try to attract a partner this way. I'm going to jam that in here, not understanding that when we get to certain parts of Ascension, we don't even want to, we might want to partner with someone to do something, but the whole partner relationship thing, it takes on a totally different turn, and they don't look like human partnerships or relationships, and they might not look like anything you would have wanted back 10 or 15 years ago, and now you're like, yeah, I could see something similar. Maybe there's a shade of something in there, but there gets to a point where it has to be a purpose. And if you're working, and we're really into the timing of it all, if you're into a different timeline, you might see a shade of something in a different timeline. Maybe a timeline you might get to in 2 or 3 years, but right now, it doesn't fit in what we're doing right now. And we can feel that. We understand that. I'm like, it doesn't fit here. That person doesn't fit here. It's not time yet. You know, there's other things we have to work through, other things we have to go through. We have to clear up our transmission. And we can't do that until we understand what our transmission is. You know, every thought does create something. But we have so many things we don't want to think we think about. That's one thing. And then we have all this unconscious stuff going on underneath we don't even know is there. We haven't even unearthed it yet. So no matter how conscious, there are parts of this process, no matter how conscious we're trying to create something, it's just not coming together. And we don't understand that. You know, it's like, I don't understand. I've done every trick in the book. And then you'll read about someone else doing it, and their stuff just came about immediately. You know, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? How come they did it for 10 minutes and they went on the subway and then met the love of their life, and I've been doing this for 4 years and I've got nothing going on. How does that work like that? It's the purity of the timelines. It's the purity of what we're trying to create. It's how we're really looking at it, how we're constructing it. You know, you can do, I want to attract a mate, but it still could be a very karmic timeline. You know, it doesn't mean because you used a higher consciousness thought, and I'm going to say higher conscious because of the perspective of it. If it's a spirituality thing, even though we do have to move beyond spirituality, we have to move beyond all of those teachings, because those kind of put you in a box too, you know, because we're so beyond all that at this point, and you get to certain places where you are so beyond all that at this point. You know, it's we have to keep going forward, and we have to keep going to the next thing, the next part of ascension, and not getting lost and wanting to stay in a certain part of it, because that still kind of semi fit in to my human reality, or it's semi fit in where I didn't look like a total crazy person to everyone I knew. You know, that kind of I still kind of am setting here a little bit of what would appear to be gelling in some kind of human reality. So we kind of want to sit there for a while, because when we sit there for a while, we feel like, okay, well, I guess I'm still okay, right? Like I'm not totally ostracized yet. I still don't look like I'm really going off the deep end. So we see different wording. You know, people use certain wording to kind of, you know, try to bring people in, and you can listen to a lot of stuff, and there'll be certain people I'll listen to just to see, you know, what's the consciousness of this. Normally I can tell in the first couple of minutes of the voice, but even if the voice sounds good, and I'm like, okay, well, that frequency I can listen to, well, what are we really saying here? You know, are we still trying to retrofit some of these concepts? Are we still trying to take these concepts and put them back in a human existence to make this better? You know, it's simple from our soul's perspective, but our soul is not trying to attract what our human wants to attract. You know, it's got a different agenda. You know, it's operating from a different playbook. You know, it's in 8 levels beyond the video game that the human is playing in. It's like one person playing checkers, one person's playing chess. You know, it's so much more going on here than what in the beginning, and doing numerous parts of ascension we still cannot see. You know, so no matter where you are in your ascension process, there'll still be things you can't see. There'll still be things that you won't understand. You won't understand why did that come in until you've cleared a lot of stuff around it and can see, yeah, it pushed me to close that timeline out. It pushed me to get to the next place. These things pushed me. So I did call them, and I did create that. I didn't sit there and consciously think about it or consciously try to not think about it. Those are all very exhausting things, but in the beginning, a lot of these things work because they get us hooked on the next thing. They're the gateway. They're the gateway to ascension, in a sense. You know, like, wow, that worked. You know, I said I wanted so-and-so to call, and they called. And because it does show that connectivity of how we're all connected, but then we get to certain parts of ascension where you feel like we're not really connected. We're connected to everybody, but not in the same way. And there might be only a few people you connect with, and then maybe you don't connect with anybody for a long time. Those things are a normal part of the process, but because it doesn't fit in to how other people are are explaining a process, or other people are going through where they are in their process, we think we've done our process wrong. I promise, if you are listening to your guidance and you really are not trying to ignore where your universe is trying to take you, it will take you the most direct route to get to what your soul is going to want. It just might not feel like it's the direct route. It won't, because you're going to try to correlate it with the human route. Not understanding there's so many other things that are created along the way, you know. And there was this great scene in the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I used to watch years ago, and it was just a scene of the two. It was when there was two slayers two vampire slayers on the show, and one came in, and this person came in and was explaining everything that was going to go on, and she was listening, and the other person came in and took one look at it, and the other slayer was like, no thanks, screw that, and she just turned around and walked out the door. And we kind of get to that, you know. We don't sit there and just listen to the stuff anymore. We kind of know, is this going to be something I want to take part in, or if it's not. Now, I'm not going to say screw that and walk out the door, but energetically, in a sense, it's kind of what we're saying. We're like, nope, I'm not going through that reality. I don't even need you to explain the reality to me. I understand, and I'm going to just walk away. Now, we have to make sure we're not walking away from it because we're afraid of going through it. There is a difference there, and those are the kind of the nuances we start to get into. Like, am I not choosing it because I know there's nothing there for me, it's not highest aligned? Is it I fear going there because I don't see what is there for me? Is it a repeat of something I've already done? Do I need to go through this again? So we do have to pick that apart. Until you feel like you've really embodied enough of your aspects, you've raised your body vibration to a point, you have the consciousness to really look at something and go, yeah, that's a hard pass. And I can already see it's a hard pass, and I don't even need to entertain this any farther. There's going to be a lot of things you will be I am not going to entertain that any further. This has gone far enough. You know, I can't do this one again. This one's done. You know, it's like, I think I did this one 5 years ago. We don't need to repeat it again. So there's a lot of that in the things that we start to decode and start to go through. So, all right. I think let me see if I have questions. Okay, I don't. Okay. So if I have questions, you can pop them in now. If I don't, I'll give it a few minutes because there is a bit of a lag. If not, I'm going to end this. See if there's anything else I can bring in. I think I pretty much covered a majority of what I wanted to cover today as far as what really creates and why we see. And I can remember a story I was doing. At that point, I was still trying to attract a partner. This was years ago. And there was something I was listening to. But the whole point now is if listening to it was to become so whole within yourself you didn't require any of that stuff. But at the time, you know, and I sent the meditation to someone else to listen to. And she was like, oh my God, my ex-boyfriend came back in like 20 minutes after I listened to it. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I listened to this thing for 3 years. What are you talking about? Your ex-boyfriend came back in 20 minutes. It was just such a, you know, it was such a funny thing. We do try to compare ourselves to others. We kind of compare ourselves to what everyone's doing, what everyone's journey is. And how come that works so quick for you? You're in a different stage. They're in a different point with it. They might not be done with the karmic cycle yet. So yeah, it's going to come back. Of course it is. But it's not because of the meditation. It's because, well, I'm gonna change what I just said. It is because of the meditation, because it's calling in more stuff to clear so you can actually get to where you want to get to. But at the time we think, oh, we got exactly what we wanted. But the more we might go through that reality, this is not exactly what I wanted, but it did help me get to a different version of maybe what I want. It becomes something more of what I wanted. So it's always going to be going deeper in. It's always that. And when you see some of these things and, you know, or some of the stuff you might have done and it might have worked really quickly before, and now you're like, how come I can't get a sign? I used to be able to get a sign right away. Now I can't get a sign because our universe will take that away after a while. External signs are a great marker for a lot of us for a long period of time to say, okay, show me the way here. Give me some way to go. But after a while, your universe, like, now you keep asking for external because you don't want to trust the internal anymore. You don't want to trust what you know internally. So we're going to take your external markers away. You have to trust what you're feeling. You know, you can't, it is a huge leap of faith. And ascension is the hardest thing you're ever going to be called to do. The absolute hardest thing you're ever going to be called to do. On every level, physical, emotional, mental, energetic. I mean, there's just nothing that compares to it. Okay, that's it. All right, so I'll see everyone next time. Bye.